And what took you down to London?
Well, actually, we moved around
Mm,
and I ended up going to university in Scotland. And
yeah.
then I did my internship in America, came back to Scotland, graduated, went back to America to do another internship, which was for 10 months, but I ended up staying 13 years. And then when I moved back to the UK in 2013, I was already moving back and I got offered a job with Marks and Spencer's based in London. So that's how I ended up in London.
And
Yeah.
what were the internships? What was your sort of degree in?
Yeah, my degree was in textile design, and my first internship was all about color trends in a color trend agency. And then my second one was in a weaving mill as a textile designer. Yeah.
And have you always been creative, do you think?
I think so. It's one thing that when people describe me always lights me up when they say, "Oh, you're so creative, AMC." I've always enjoyed that, but now um, I kind of bristle at that a little bit because I feel like when I'm running a workshop and I ask people who thinks of themselves as creative, and a few people put their hand up, and I say who feels like they're not creative, and usually more people put their hand up. I feel there's like this separation with where you're either creative or you're not creative. And so I think I think that could be quite misleading. And I say to people, some days I don't feel creative, but I can still do creative things. So I really wonder if it is that we're like creative people or not creative people, or it's just that we're people who have an interest in creativity and perhaps we have some natural ability to do creative things or are more drawn to it. But it really makes me sad when people describe themselves as not creative because I feel like every human um, has creativity in them, and creativity is so vast. There's so many different ways that we can be creative and do creative. I know that's incorrect grammar, but I'm saying that on
No,
purpose.
yeah, yeah.
That how could you not tap into one of those ways of being creative? So um, it's really interesting. Sometimes I really struggle to describe what is creativity or what it is to be creative because I don't want to, A, I don't want to leave people out, and B, I'm still sort of wrestling with that myself. So I have noticed that when people ask me, are you creative? I'll say yes, but then I think, oh, am I?
Mm,
Or am I in this moment? And so I do wonder, that's something that I'm really exploring at the moment is this
yeah.
question of, is it sort of a gift that we're given, or is it something that we can learn or be trained in as well and develop?
And this is what I posted on my socials this morning because you advocate for training our brains to be creative, training
Yes,
our creativity. And my
yes,
question was, if we can be trained in our creativity, then we can also be trained out of it.
yes. Oh my goodness. That is such a good point, Lucy. Yes, yes. And if I may, I'll hit you with a little
Go
report
for it.
story statistic, if you will. So something that I came across recently was back in the 1960s, NASA, the American Space Agency, you may have heard about this before, they commissioned some researchers to develop a test all about creativity that they could then use to identify the people with the most imagination and creativity, whatever we're calling that. So this research was so interesting that it led to another question for them, which is about where does creativity come from, which is essentially what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And so to do that, they thought, oh, we should go and look at childhood, see if it starts there. So this team of researchers then went and interviewed 1,600 children aged between 4 and 5, and they gave them a test. The test was all about coming up with, I think it was all about solving problems essentially, but it was all about coming up with novel solutions and ideas. And out of the 1,600, 4 to 5-year-olds. Can you guess how many percentage landed at landed at what they call genius level in the test?
I feel like you may have given something away
I
with
did.
your. I'm going to say 75%.
That's a really good guess. It was 98%.
98%.
98%.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that incredible?
That is incredible.
So,
But I'm not surprised though. I'm not
no,
surprised by that. And the reason
no.
why I say that is because as somebody who works in education
Ah,
and
yes,
actually currently teach 4 to 5-year-olds dance, drama, music,
yes,
I can see that they are naturally inclined
yes,
to explore ideas
yes,
and problem solve. And I
yes,
think this is why I was asking the question of whether or not we can be trained out of it,
yes,
out of creativity, because Sir Ken Robinson talks about being nurtured
yes,
out of our natural gifts.
yes, yes, completely.
But that research is
Yeah,
phenomenal, and I was wondering how that kind of influences your work now, because I know how was the Facilitate conference that you went to last month? Was it incredible?
amazing. But can I come back to that because I want to
Of
tell you a bit more
course,
about the NASA study.
of course.
So,
Sorry.
no, it's all connecting dots. I love it. So they were so fascinated by this result of 98%, they actually extended the study to make it a lot longer. So they followed the same students, the same children, and they tested them again at age 5. And the percentage of genius level, no, sorry, they tested them at age 5. I'm getting mixed up. They tested them again 5 years later at age 10. And the percentage dropped down from the 98% to I think it was 30%. I may be misquoting. They tested them again when they were 15. It dropped again to something like 12%. And then they tested them again as adults. And can you guess what percentage was ranked at genius level?
3%?
Yeah, 2%. It was the
2%?
exact opposite, 2%.
Wow.
As adults. So in that study, I think you could absolutely say that we are trained out of our creativity through the systems that we work in, which is essentially that we operate in, which is essentially our schools and our workplaces.
I'm glad you finished off the research,
Yeah,
um, and shared that with our listeners, because I think for those of you who are listening, I'm absolutely gobsmacked. And it confounds what I have been thinking for a long, long, long time.
yes, yes. And I think it links up with exactly what Sir Ken Robinson was saying in that amazing TED talk that he gave about how we don't nurture creativity, we don't teach it, we don't train it, we don't focus on it, we don't even
Mm,
talk about it so much.
no, and that's a really good point. We don't talk about it enough. I'm thinking about how my little boy operates in our house,
Yeah,
and there are things for him to create everywhere. There's paper, there's pens, there's books, there's Lego. I know you love a bit of
I
Lego.
do.
Um, he paints Warhammer models with his
Yeah,
dad.
yeah,
He loves stories. He's already told me he wants to be an author and illustrator, but he doesn't like writing at school.
yeah,
So, we at some point there needs to be discussion
yes,
around this. And
yes,
I know there'll be people that are much more intelligent than I already doing a lot of research. And I'm already in conversations with people around how I might get myself into those rooms. But you are already in those rooms and you are already leading those workshops. So what can we do to ignite our imaginations as a creativity trainer?
yes,
How can we overcome these challenges, these blocks, these creative blocks?
yes. so many things are pinging in my ADHD brain. I don't know where to start. Um, so I think there's a few things. I think one about how you said that there's places for was it your son to go and
Yeah.
play, and there's like paper out and paints and Lego. I think a lot of it is that just having things around us that we can easily access and do. I think for adults, there's a lot of conditioning that we've had about um, how we use our time and how we should be productive and producing, and that you rest after you've produced. And I think there's so much involved in that it's hard for, I think, adults to give time to doing things that what I call recharge our creative batteries. Um, and also because people are tired, we live really busy lives. I know when I was working in a corporate office, by the end of the day, I didn't really have much energy to, pick up a paintbrush or start doing anything. And I've heard this from so many people that the most they can do is either like sit down and watch Netflix or scroll on your phone because you just have no energy. So I think that we're not really set up in our current cultures and societies to give space and breadth to creativity. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do in my efforts as a creativity trainer, is to let me help you dedicate some space and time to doing some creative activities that will inspire you and recharge your creative batteries. Um, and that's because I was thinking about if we approach creativity like a muscle, which I believe I first heard from David Gauntlet, who wrote some really good books. His last one was all about creativity. And he talks about creativity as a muscle. If we think about that, and then I was thinking about how I love doing yoga, and I really love how I feel after doing yoga, but I don't put on YouTube at home and do yoga. Some people do, but I don't. The only time that I do yoga is if I book a class and I go to that class and I do the yoga with the instructor and the other people. So I think that some things we need that sort of commitment to ourselves. And also I think there's something about being in a space with other people that helps you to do the thing
Yeah.
as
I
well.
completely agree. Yeah.
So, and I think also as adults, I have 2 points. I hope I don't forget the last one. One is about, I just gave a talk this week all about creativity, and it's called Creativity Lessons from a Broken Cassette Tape, which shows my love of analog cassettes and my age. Um, but in the talk, one of the listeners, my friend Soleil, came up with this idea about how in our past we may have been told that, oh, you can't draw, or you can't sing, or no, music's not for you, or dance isn't for you, and I reflect on my own experience. I took art and I really loved art. I was always doodling, cutting out shapes, sticking them together. I really loved art as a child. And I remember being in high school and my art teacher making fun of one of my drawings and saying that my flowers look like fried eggs. I can put myself in that position, which was 40 plus years ago now, and how that felt, that critique. And he was so dismissive of my drawings. I was never encouraged, that I really then thought I can't do art. And so this point that Soleil made really resonated with me. And she says, sometimes I think we need like a creative pal or a creative buddy who can help us push through our uncomfortable feelings and also start to reverse some of those things, those stories, they're stories that we've been told, um, to help us say, well, go on, just have a go. You need that sort of cheerleader, that's someone who's going to push you, not in a bad way, but in a good way, because
Mm.
they know that you could try it. And also why do we have to be good at everything? Anytime any of us does anything for the first time, it's not great. Why can't we just make that a thing? Right,
Yeah.
that is the way it is. So why do we feel like we have to be really good at something when we start it or when we restart it?
Mm,
The other point, sorry, I have a lot to say,
it's okay.
is about uh, modes of thinking. Uh, and there's a few different things around this, but basically, there's two modes of thinking that we can identify, especially when we think about creative thinking or ideation. One is divergent thinking, where you're really opening up and you're dreaming, you're in that imagination space. You're really, thinking about the what ifs and imagine ifs, and you're really widening out. And here, quantity leads to quality. Like the more ideas that you can come up with, the better. And the more that you feel they're crazy, the better ideas that they are. But then there's also convergent thinking, which is also important. And that's when you come from being really wide out here and you come in and you narrow down and you analyze and you think, well, which idea could work in this context or this
Mm,
scenario, and which is possible right now, or which is possible in the time frame that we're thinking, which do we have the resources for? And you start analyzing, and then you can start narrowing down your options. In our society, we really, really celebrate the convergent thinking, the analysis, and let's get to something, let's make a decision quickly. Whereas we don't celebrate in the same way that divergent thinking and that opening out and that dream space and that imagination. I don't know if you can relate to this, but being in a room with people and you're coming up with ideas and someone's like, "Oh, we've tried that. Oh no, that won't work." Straight away. And then that kills that divergent thinking, because we tend to, and I do this myself, we tend to do the divergent thinking and the convergent thinking all in the same
mm,
time. Whereas what if we can do some divergent thinking and just be happy to be in that divergent dream space, imagination space, knowing that we will come to the convergent thinking later. And
mm,
there's a whole process called creative problem solving where this is really um, laid out. So you have, I think it's 6 different steps, and within each step you have divergent thinking and then you have convergent thinking, but they are completely
mm.
separate.
Almost at the opposite ends of
Yes.
the process, aren't
Yes,
they?
yes,
Um, and I mean, thank you so much for explaining all of that, because I think for some of us, it can be quite tricky to unpick all of that,
yes,
especially when you're thinking about your own creative process.
yes,
Um, and I think the thing that came to me was this idea, two things: time. So
yes,
actually having the time
yes,
to allow yourself to be in that dream space, that
yes,
imaginative space. But also linking to this idea of outcome, and I've spoken to a couple of guests about this, and
yes,
also linking to my background in education, but this idea of
yes,
assessment,
yes,
and not allowing our children to be in that space because everything needs to be measured.
yes,
So it is going straight back to the thing that you said earlier, is about joining the dots.
yes,
And obviously I started to ask you about the
yes,
facilitate conference, and
yes,
I'd love to
yes,
get your insight on that, because
yes.
that sounds like something I would like to go to next
Yes,
year.
please, Lucy,
Um,
come.
because it's not too far away from me. But what were your key takeaways, and how does that link to what you've just explained now? This idea of being in that blue sky thinking space, that
Yeah,
imaginative space.
yeah. So the Facilitate 2026 conference is run by the IAF, England and Wales, and IAF is a global organisation, and IAF stands for the International Association of Facilitators. And I was introduced to them in 2023 by my friend Lucy, and I went along to my first conference then. They have an annual conference. It has been in Birmingham, and it will be next year. And the first time that I went, in 2023, I walked away from that 2-day conference feeling like I'd found my tribe. I found a community of facilitators and coaches and trainers and people who were facilitating curious, um, uh, and adjacent to facilitation. And I just really felt like I'd found my tribe, which was an amazing feeling. I felt like I could be myself. And that's a big thing for me. I'm late diagnosed ADHD, and I'm still figuring out what that means for how I operate in this world that's not designed for neurodivergent people. But the conference, it's all peer led. So all the sessions that are run um, are all workshops in some form or another, and they're run by people from the community and people going to the conference. So there's no keynote speaker, and there are plenary sessions where we all come together and we do things. But what you get is you get a choice of 4 different workshops you can go to within each time slot, and they're run by people from the community. And you can learn so much about being a facilitator, either about the topic that the workshop's on or how other people set up their workshops. It's just really fascinating and nourishing, and you learn so much. And when I first went, I didn't know how it was going to be because I'm a freelance facilitator essentially,
Yeah.
currently, and a lot of the community, I think it's about 80% of the community are freelance facilitators too. And I wasn't sure how it was going to be because in some sense we're sort of competition for each other. Like I'm sure that we want to work with the same clients. Some of us do very similar things, but there was absolutely none of that. It was all very generous, and people just really supporting each other. Everybody is encouraging each other to do well. And so supportive is the best way that I can describe it. And I always learn a bunch of things whenever I go. And this year was no exception. Um, and it, it's always a lot. You come away, your brain is absolutely full. And to be honest with you, that was the end. That was back in April. I'm still processing
Yeah.
all the things from that conference because it's a lot, but it's brilliant. And
It sounds great.
yeah, the people are amazing. And I'll share a link with you because you can actually sign up to be
Yeah.
on the wait list.
Oh, amazing. That'd be
Yes,
great.
yes,
Yeah, please do. And I'll put it in the
yes.
show notes as well.
Oh, that would
For
be
anyone who's
awesome.
listening, if you
Yes,
fancy going along to that, I might see you there.
you will. Absolutely. It's a date.
um, it's a date. Save the date.
Save the
But
date.
the themes of kind of like designing that
Mm,
the space and the time and the collaboration, because I think
yes,
often some of these things are just tick box exercises, and
yes,
a lot of businesses, a lot of schools, a lot of organizations use these buzzwords,
yes,
but it's like what do they actually mean?
yes, yes, yes,
And it is about
yes.
designing these experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much that comes from the environments that we're in, like you were talking about earlier, like having materials around that you can play with. And also, I think a lot of it is about having permission to do things, especially now when, say, if I'm working with a team in a workshop, that's a work activity. So I very explicitly give people permission to let go if they can, to play, which is not always a popular word. I had a client once who didn't want me to put the word play in a social media post about a workshop that we'd run. Um,
Really?
yeah, even though the technique, the thing that I used was Lego serious play, so that was very tricky.
Tell me
Yeah.
about Lego, because I never really had Lego when I was growing up.
Ah, okay.
I had dolls, and I
Yes,
dressed them up, and
yes.
I drew and read a lot, and I played the piano.
Wow.
So I had creativity and expression was encouraged in lots of
Yes,
ways, but
yes.
Lego was not a thing that I remember having.
Oh,
However, I love making the Lego sets with my little boy and my other half.
Amazing.
I absolutely love it now. It's so relaxing.
Yes, isn't it? I love Lego. I'm always up for some Lego. Um, Lego Serious Play is actually a methodology that was developed by the Lego Group. Um, and they did that in collaboration with two university professors. And that
Okay.
was at a time when the Lego Group, the business wasn't doing so well. And so they were like, how can we use Lego in our strategy and business development? So that's where Lego Serious Play comes from. And it's a methodology that's really for workplaces. So it's about taking bags of Lego and going into a workplace, although it can be used in any setting. But I mostly use it with teams, and you can use the Lego. There's a few great things about it. So it's a set methodology, so you follow it step by step. And essentially, it's a facilitator, someone like me, who gives a prompt. And then you ask everybody to build their response to it. So people build in silence and individually. And instead of thinking and say writing, they're actually building with their hands. So when you're using your hands, you engage a different part of your brain. And also, I think it's really good because it gives everybody pause to think on their own. Whereas usually, if you're in a business meeting, somebody says something and then other
Mm,
people respond to that, and not everybody has a chance to speak. So this gives you all pause to think, build a model, and then everybody shares, and you take your turn to talk about things not about yourself, but about your model. So it also creates this separate entity that you can talk to
mm,
in response to the prompt that you were given. So it's really, really powerful. Um, and it's really brilliant. And I was drawn to it because I identify myself as a maker, like I did my degree in textiles. I
mm,
love making things with my hands. I always have as a child. I was in the garden making mud pies. I haven't and I think it sort of clicks into something like that with me. And also, I just love the way that people light up because things come to you as you're building, but then things also come to you as you're sharing and in the questions that other people ask you. So it's a really, really brilliant methodology.
mm.
And I would really love to see one day like big bowls of Lego in every
Yeah.
meeting room in every company.
I think we need to manifest that.
Yeah, imagine that.
Imagine if that was the case.
Yeah, how great would that be?
It would be great. I would love it
Yes,
because I'm not one for, I mean, I love conversation,
yes,
and I'm a real um, team player. Like if
yes,
someone brings an idea, I'm there. I'm gone with ideas. It might, and I often sort of need a little bit of time to reflect on those, process those, come back to it.
yes,
Like the whole sort of process of working with people. But yeah, that'd be great. And it's interesting because I'm reflecting on when we go to the library, for example, with
yes.
my little one. There is often Lego out.
Was there?
Yeah,
Interesting.
but I really struggle with just making.
Right. Yes,
So if I'm following something,
yes,
I'm a whiz.
yeah,
However, if I'm just given some
yeah,
Lego,
yeah.
I stare at it and think, what am I going to make? And do you know the thing I always make?
Amazing. Tell me
Boxes and
more.
houses,
Tell me about the boxes.
just building little boxes for
Yeah,
for things to go inside.
amazing.
But I can't, like, my little one will often make sort of big spaceships and
Yeah.
cars and things with moving parts. I mean, he was with a friend recently and they made lots of spinners
Oh,
and
wow.
trying to create the
Yeah.
best spinner.
There you go.
But it's so fascinating, isn't it? How everybody's brain works differently.
Yes.
And I have such an appreciation for that. And I was wondering if if you wouldn't mind talking about your late ADHD diagnosis
Yes,
and
absolutely.
how you came to that and the challenges that you're overcoming
Yes.
as a facilitator and as you said, operating in a world that isn't designed for neurodivergence.
No, not at all. So it's really interesting because ADHD was not on my radar at all. But once I got the diagnosis, I was like, oh, so many things made sense. Um, but I got my diagnosis by accident. I I went back to school in my 40s to study for a master's in innovation management here in London. And during that master's, first of all, I found it incredibly difficult at the beginning, um, because I had been in corporate life for 10 plus years at that point, and 15 years actually. And the way that I was used to reading and writing was reading a novel or, perhaps a nonfiction book, but reading it from the start to the finish. And then writing, my writing was either creating a PowerPoint for work or creating incredibly short emails because I had been taught to get to the point in my communication at work. So
Mm.
for me, concise was good. So when
Mm.
during our first project that we were given, we were asked to write, I think it was either the first or second, might have been the second project. We were asked to write a 3,000 word essay, and we were given a reading list that was over 2 pages long. I kind of freaked out and I was like, how the heck am I going to write 3,000 words? And it just seemed impossible to me. I just really couldn't wrap my head around it. And the books, I was like, because it was a mixture of books and papers that we had to read, and I was like, how am I going to read all this? Because I find reading quite difficult. Sometimes I'll read the same paragraph 10 times.
Mm.
How am I going to do this? So I went and sought some support, which was great. At our university, we had academic support. So I booked a session, and that there was one particular academic support tutor, Richard, who I sat down with and I gave him my brief and told him about this really long essay and all these books and everything. And he was like, oh, okay. You obviously have not, he didn't say it in this way, but he brought me to a point where I realized that academic reading and writing are different to what I had been used to. And he taught me some ways that I could, you know, do that. Um, but he said, have you ever thought about going for a disability assessment? He said, I wonder if you perhaps have dyslexia because of the struggle that I was having. And I said, no, I haven't. He said, well, you should because it's part of your degree package that you have
Mm.
this support here at university. So I was like, okay. So I went off to the disability service and booked an appointment. And my first appointment, they said, asked me a few questions. And they said, I wonder if I wonder if it's dyspraxia for you, which I'd never even heard of dyspraxia. So I was like, I don't know. They said, well, we'll send you for a full assessment. So they sent me for this full assessment with a psychologist, and it was 3 hours long. I remember it being quite lengthy, and it was a whole bunch of different tests. Like some were word based, some were shape based, some were numbers based. So I did all the tests, and I waited for the report, and it came back, and it said that I had been diagnosed with ADHD in the area of attention. And I really didn't even know what ADHD was at that point because
Mm.
it just really had not been on my radar. But suddenly, the consistent feedback that I gotten throughout my working life about my time management, which was always the number one thing that I needed to improve on. AMC, you're great. Time management, not so good. Um, just suddenly made so much sense to me. And also found this really amazing book. The title is called something like So You're Not Lazy, Stupid or Crazy. And that is how I'd been feeling for most of my life. I felt lazy because doing some things that other people found simple are extremely hard for me. Um, I felt stupid a lot of the time. Sometimes I'm prone to oversharing with people. Excuse me. Let me take a sip.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, so this book, although to be honest with you, I never finished reading the book, but I love the title. And it just gave me so much comfort and relief. And I'm still still learning things about ADHD now. Um, and I've heard other people say this. Part of it, I think, is um, you have this sort of emotional grief about what would have been if you'd known earlier, like how different your life might have been, how, because I know how much energy and struggle I had in corporate life, how that might have been eased if I'd been aware of this
Yeah.
as a child even, or even as a young adult. Um, Obviously I can't go back in time, and I firmly believe that I am the result of all those experiences, and they are where I am today, and that's exactly where I'm meant to be. But there is quite a sort of grieving process involved. And then also I feel like I'm in a process of unmasking and figuring out what are the masks that I've worn. Um, because I was criticized a lot for time management, a messy desk, and not being organized, I really sort of overcompensated. Not on the tidy desk. My desk is still messy. But
Good.
especially on the organization, to some point, the time management, but definitely the organization.
Mm,
So much so that when I came to the end of that, it was a master's degree that I was doing where I got my diagnosis, and the team we had to vote for uh, two people to be our project managers for our degree show. And one of the questions was vote for the people you think are the most organized. I was one of those two people because my fellow um, peers on that master's course felt like I was organized. Whereas to me, I don't feel organized at all, but I think it's from the overcompensation and the sort of strategies that I've learned for myself so that I can fit in to a corporate life and stop getting so much feedback about being
mm,
unorganized that I'd sort of overcompensated for it. So now I'm trying to separate the what is AMC without these masks? And I think sometimes the masks are helpful because you need them in certain situations and scenarios. So at the moment, I'm sort of working through what that looks like for me so that I can um, be myself in the
yes.
best way that I can and trying to figure out what that is.
Yes. And every situation is different.
Yes,
And sometimes you need to, or we sometimes feel like we need to swap between the masks in
yes,
order to fit in those different situations.
yes.
I see that a lot in school.
Do you?
And there's a lot of strategies that are being put in place for children who are being diagnosed now with ADHD.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this is where creativity absolutely
Yes,
is the only strategy.
absolutely. Yes.
Because it's often described as having a busy brain, and surely from what you've already described to me is that busyness is surely the imagination, it's that divergent
Yes,
thinking.
yes, and also I think with ADHD brains, it's about like connecting things across
Mm,
things that not everybody would see. So I think I've heard people say that sort of, back in the day when we were cave people, it would be very useful to have people with ADHD brains in a tribe because the more diversity that you have within a tribe, the better off your survival chances are, because
yes.
thinking differently. So,
Mm,
absolutely. And I'm actually doing a project. I'm calling it a community project because it's not just me, but it's based on a hunch that Lego serious play could help us have neurodivergent conversations and could help us make spaces like workshops easier and more accessible for more neurodivergent participants as well. So I'm actually got a project at the moment with 64 other people. Some are from the
wow.
facilitation community, some are from neurodiversity lived experience community, some are from a psychologist point of view. And we're looking at how we can help, how we could perhaps use Lego Serious Play to create more what we're calling neuro-affirming spaces and workshops for people. And one of the first things that we're doing is creating a facilitation guide together. And then I
Mm.
do see that eventually it will evolve to where we can offer Lego Serious Play workshops that talk about the topic of neurodiversity, especially at work. I think it could be particularly useful. So, yeah,
Sounds incredible.
yeah, it's
That
really.
sounds really, really incredible. You are amazing.
Oh, thank you, Lucy.
Oh, you are, and this is why I love this platform, because I have the honour of meeting people like you and talking to you and listening to your ideas and how you approach things and different perspectives. Like, it's been such an eye opener for me
Well,
and such a learning space,
oh,
genuinely.
thank you. I just want to say thank you to you because you know how I was saying earlier we don't talk about creativity. You are creating that space to talk about creativity in a really wonderful, generous and open way. And I want to thank you for that. I think the world needs more Lucy in it
Oh.
too.
Oh,
Really,
thank you. It's
definitely.
really important to me. It is really important to me. I think from becoming a mum
Right.
really sort
Yeah.
of brought to home how important that space is. You know, I've had to open my heart to things and my mind to things, and I love learning from people. And but it also allows me to find my own voice as well
Lovely.
within that space. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what resonated with me just then. It's like, you know, how do we empower people to talk about their experiences, about their creativity, because it's unique
Yes.
to them.
Yes.
And how can we learn from each other? You know,
Yes.
that is really what collaboration is.
Absolutely. I think nobody has all the answers, you know, like
I don't have any answers.
you have lots. But I
I do
think
not.
I think the other thing is, I said this at the talk I gave the other day, I think we need to spend more time with questions and appreciating questions. And imagine if we had um some sort of time where we just collected a bunch of questions about creativity. We didn't try to answer them, we just question collected. I think that that would be so lovely. I mean, wouldn't that be great? I just think that would be amazing.
Now my brain is pinging because I've got an interview on Monday for it's a communities development officer role
Okay.
in Mansfield,
Amazing.
and I need to present an idea for a project
Okay.
um that links to the Arts Council Let's Create initiative.
Yeah.
So I was kind of sitting here. I've got to do some thinking tonight about
Yes.
it, but you know, questions collecting.
Yes.
I think that's
Yes.
a great starting point actually for
Yes.
my project.
Do
So
it.
thank you for that.
You're welcome. Let me know how it goes.
I will. Well,
Yes.
yes, fingers crossed. I mean, it could go either way, of course. But again, it's taking that road less traveled, being open
Yes.
to different experiences,
Yes.
pushing myself out of the comfort zone. You know, for those people who are listening, you know, this is how we really flex that creative muscle.
Amen. Absolutely. This is it exactly. Yes.
Love it. I've got so many other questions for you,
Oh
and we've already been chatting 40 minutes.
gosh.
Um, and I told you that it was going to be lovely
Yes,
because,
you were
you know,
right.
it's just meandering and all of these lovely
I love it.
threads that we're pulling together.
Yes.
Um, but I was wondering if you could share with us how you get into your creative flow.
Yes, I'd love
And then
to.
I think we'll leave it there and we'll
Okay.
hopefully catch up again,
Yes,
maybe for another episode
I'd
or
love
for
that.
like a little mini series or
Yes.
something.
Maybe we can do a question collecting session together.
Can we? Can we do that?
Yes, let's do
I
it,
would love
Lucy.
that.
Yes. We'll bring Elizabeth in as well.
My gosh, we should.
Yes.
Okay. There's a project.
Yes. Okay, that's how I get in my creative flow, what we just did.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But I will tell you another way, and I think
Okay.
something that I'm also thinking about at the moment. I have to just say, I don't think I said this already, but I've identified myself as a creativity trainer. And I'm thinking about it like a personal trainer, like you go to a personal trainer to help you exercise your physical muscles. And I would like to set up a number of spaces and time for people to come to me to exercise their creative muscles, which I'm still identifying what those muscles are and what we might call them. But it's definitely an exploration for me and an experiment. I have no idea if it will work or not work, and that is part of the beauty of it, but it's also scary. And I think we need to acknowledge that doing creative, novel, innovative things is scary and uncomfortable, but that is all part of it, and you need to embrace that too. Um, so it is an exploration, but some things that really have been helping me is um, getting out of my head and into my body. And to do that, I'll go for a walk, or I'll book a yoga class, or I'll book a Tai Chi class, although I haven't for a month. So, note to self, book one. And I'll try and get out of my head and into my body. And I think it's really common when I'm talking to people about where your best ideas come from. And very often it's in the shower, it's out for a walk, it's doing exercise. It's like when we're physically involved in something else, it opens up that brain space to let ideas flow. And the other thing that I has really helped me lately is I've started to pick up my sketchbook again, and I have it available, and I have a little box with different paints and crayons, and I'll just sit on the sofa and I'll do what I call doodling. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, and it doesn't matter what it looks like after I've finished. I'm just doodling, I'm just picking up colours that appeal to me. Yes, most of it's orange. How did you guess? But it's a really lovely space for me to play with paints and materials and colour. I love colour. And sometimes I'll share them, sometimes I don't. Sometimes they look terrible. And that is fantastic, because the more terrible stuff that I can make, then the more non-terrible stuff I can make. But what's even more important than the terrible and non-terrible is the way that I feel, because it soothes my nervous system, it calms my brain, and um, it just gives me really good well-being and mental health, I feel. So there are a couple of things that help me.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think, obviously, we are recording this episode in Mental Health Awareness Week.
Yes.
So I
Oh,
will be sharing some,
I hadn't even thought
yeah,
of that. Yes.
yeah. And I'll be sharing some of these nuggets
Yes.
from this episode over the next few days, I think, because creativity and our mental health and well-being, they are intrinsically linked.
Yes.
I do believe that wholeheartedly. I mean, there's
Yes.
lots of research at the moment to do with social prescribing. We've got Dr.
Yes.
Fizzy Fancourt's book that's come out about
Yes.
art cure. So I think, bringing together all of those narratives, those gems, those strategies, the activities. I love the fact that you say that it doesn't matter how terrible
Yeah.
what you're doing is,
Yeah.
because it's the doing.
Exactly.
It's the
Exactly.
doing that matters, and that's the
Yes.
impact that it has, and the
Yes.
impact that it has on your body, on your nervous system.
Yes.
So if you are listening right now and you're thinking, how am I going to tap into my creativity? How am I going to get myself into creative flow? Go to something that you know
Yes.
is going to take you out of your head and into your body. Maybe plan something in, for later on today or later on this weekend, or, at some point in the future.
Yes.
Book a class.
Book a class. Go do something that you thought you'd never do too. Just do something unusual, something different.